Okay. Well, thank you all for coming today for the Prepare Enrich training. I am going to try to open up my note page as well. Are you still just seeing the main screen that says Prepare Enrich? Okay, silence means yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so my goal today is to talk through just an overview of Prepare Enrich. It's not going to get into all of the details of how to talk through every aspect with clients, but I just want everyone to know kind of what it is and why this is of interest to Nightlight, why we want to use it in all of our offices fairly soon. So Prepare Enrich, there we go. Prepare Enrich has actually been around for a very long time. It was started in the late 1970s as a research project for Dr. David Olson with the University of Minnesota. It may have been actually part of his doctoral program. He was doing research to check the effectiveness of premarital counseling. So it actually started with a primary focus on premarital work. Then in the 1980s and 90s, it actually evolved into a robust couples assessment and program for both premarital and married couples. And it has been mentioned in over 1,200 peer-reviewed articles and is now considered one of the most researched assessment tools. It has incredibly high levels of reliability and validity. And because it has been around for so long, it really has had an opportunity to be well tested. And it's been normed using a sample of over 50,000 couples. It has also been validated across ethnic groups and adapted for use in several other countries. Prepare Enrich is rooted in family systems theory, specifically the circumplex model of marital and family systems. It's a very popular and well-researched model of couple and family health. The one that we are interested in using for Prepare Enrich, the version, is the pre-adoption, pre-foster care version. This was created in 2012, and it is designed to identify unrealistic expectations and begin key conversations regarding preparation for adoption and foster care. So Prepare Enrich is designed to look at marital satisfaction, relationship dynamics, and strength and growth areas. It is not meant to be a predictor of relationship success. It's not a predictor of placement success when we're speaking of adoption and foster care work. It is not a pass-fail tool, and it is not a substitute for an adoption professional's interviews and work with a family. It's really meant to just augment that and add additional information to the work that we're already doing. The format of the assessment is that it's approximately 140 statements that the couples individually respond to on a 5-point Likert scale, from strongly agree to strongly disagree. And it normally takes about 30 to 45 minutes per person. They do sign in online, complete it, and then the results are available immediately. So it's fairly quick and painless. We do encourage couples to do this on a normal day when they feel fairly neutral about their relationship, not an overly fabulous day, not an overly bad day. It needs to be a fairly normal day for their relationship. And we do ask that they just go with their gut instinct. We want them to respond with what they initially think, not overthink it. Try not to choose undecided in the middle, because that makes it not as useful, but it's very, very easy to use. The components of the Prepare Enrich include a lot of information, as you can see from the slide. The results are available immediately for the facilitator to log into the database and get it. And it does include a detailed facilitator report and then a summary couples report. Prepare Enrich assesses several aspects of the relationship and the individuals. It's going to look at how much the couple agrees on how they describe their relationship. It measures each individual's level of satisfaction with the relationship as a whole and with specific aspects of it. It includes a personality description for each individual and an overview of the dynamics in the relationship. And then it also maps out the couple relationship and family of origin relationships using a scale of flexibility and closeness. Finally, there are some customized scales. The one that we're going to be doing has 3 specific to adoption or foster care. The Prepare Enrich also starts off with some concise background information about the clients and data on commitment and abuse. I'll be sharing a little bit more about each of these components as we go. So you may be asking why we should even be considering this. Why should foster and adoption agencies be interested in using Prepare Enrich with their clients? Research has shown that child outcomes improve with increased health and stability of the marriage. Introducing a traumatized child into a family unit will only widen cracks that may already be there. And a family, I'm sure you all can attest to this as well, is really only as strong and as stable as the marriage relationship is. The strengths in a marriage, such as communication, empathy, and self-understanding, are relationship skills that carry over into parenting. And a strong marriage is the foundation of a strong parenting team. So we are very invested in our couples having the strongest marriage possible, which Prepare Enrich allows us to do. For the adoption worker and the agency, Prepare Enrich helps us increase our efficiency. It provides a comprehensive picture of a couple and a family system in a very short time frame, and it maximizes the limited time that we may have with each couple. We do fight against the time demands of the home study process when we're doing this. So you do go into the visits knowing a great deal about the couple already that you don't have to then interview them for. You gain objective information to validate or invalidate what you are experiencing with the couple. That can be very beneficial when it's hard to put your finger on what you're feeling in your interactions. And it's very useful for newer workers because it's more objective and not as subjective. Prepare Enrich is used by therapists, counselors, and pastors, so we can easily refer a couple to someone who can help them work on growth areas if needed. So this is a great starting point that we can help our families take the next step to improve their relationship and pause adoption or foster care if needed. And finally, flexibility. We can use as much or as little of the Prepare Enrich system as we desire. Even if a couple just takes the assessment, relationships improve. 4 out of 13 couples improved their relationship just from taking the assessment, and 10 out of 13 who took the assessment and also had feedback from a facilitator improved their relationship. So simply the act of taking it is beneficial. It starts conversations with the couple and helps them begin looking at their relationship. The Prepare Enrich helps us as an agency create more stable families, and therefore it does increase the likelihood of placement success. It's not a guarantee, and this instrument is not a predictor of it, but more stability in the family means an increased likelihood for placement success. And improving marital satisfaction leads to better mental health outcomes for vulnerable children. For families, there's some benefits too. The couples come away from Prepare Enrich with curiosity about what the other person said in answer to the questions. It begins some conversation that way and really stimulates a dialogue. Sometimes our couples don't have even the vocabulary to really begin having some conversations about the relationship itself. It increases their awareness of themselves and their partner, and it does increase their relationship satisfaction just from having the assessment. It decreases the likelihood of divorce, and it helps couples to identify their strengths and then the areas to work on prior to placement. It really helps them to use their waiting time well. We want to help them focus on that while they are waiting for a placement, there are ways to be intentional and improve their setup for success moving into parenting. Prepare Enrich is based on positive couple agreement, and that is when a couple answers questions in a way that reflect positively on their relationship. They answer the questions in regard to 10 core scales and then also customized scales. As you can see here, we have a variety of core relationship items that are important, including communication, partner style and habits, sexual relationship that a lot of families don't necessarily want to talk about, roles and responsibilities, spiritual beliefs, very core aspects of relationships. And each of these has, I believe, 10 to 15 questions or statements that the family responds to. And then the customized scales deal specifically with the expectations around adoption or fostering, practical considerations, such as do they have a daycare plan for their child, or have they talked about childcare arrangements, and then adoptive parenting itself, how they relate to the child and what their plan is for that. Forgiveness does tend to be a customized scale with all versions of Prepare Enrich as well. So scoring of the relationship scales and satisfaction, like I said, are based on positive couple agreement. So that phrase can be a little confusing. Each individual answers these statements, strongly agree to strongly disagree. And when they answer in a way that reflect positively on the relationship, that raises their score for positive couple agreement. For example, under communication, one statement says, I can express my true feelings to my partner. So if both individuals answer agreeing with that statement, it raises their positive couple score. In the reverse, couples would disagree with a negative statement about the relationship. So the item would say, I wish my partner were more willing to share his or her feelings. And if both individuals respond with disagree or strongly disagree, it raises their positive couple agreement score and reflects positively on the relationship. You may notice that one of the core scales is spiritual beliefs. I just want to point out that the assessment can be customized for a variety of faith backgrounds. Protestant, Catholic, Jewish, non-religious, and interfaith couples have a customized feature, which is very beneficial. So Prepare Enrich reveals an overall satisfaction level with the relationship as a whole, and it reveals individual satisfaction for each relationship topic. You can see in this example, I hope it's big enough for you to see, we have Ken and Anita. They're going to be our sample throughout this. Ken feels an average level of overall satisfaction with their relationship, while Anita experiences a slightly higher satisfaction. And that's with their overall relationship as a whole. Each couple's positive couple agreement score on the core scales raises their satisfaction level. And it determines if the core scale, like communication or conflict resolution, would be listed as a strength, a possible strength, a growth, or a growth area. Combining the scores allows us to identify couples as one of 5 couple types. There's vitalized, harmonious, conventional, conflicted, or devitalized. You can see here that the 5 couple types have very different levels of average satisfaction scores, with vitalized couples being the most satisfied and having the most agreement in their answers. On the next slide, we'll look at how it breaks down across those core scales that we talked about. So this graph shows our 5 couple types, and at the bottom is the 10 core scales and scales in the relationship. And you can see how each couple type has a varied amount of satisfaction in those areas in positive couple agreement. Vitalized couples have the highest level of positive couple agreement across most areas. They are the happiest couples and the least likely to divorce. harmonious couples have moderate to high levels of positive couple agreement, PCA, and typically they're highest in sexual relationship and relationship roles, and the lowest in partner style and habits. In the middle, we have conventional couples. They have a moderate level of agreement, and they are typically highest in relationship roles and spiritual beliefs, and they are going to be lowest in communication and conflict resolution, as well as partner style and habits. And then we have conflicted. Conflicted couples have moderately low positive couple agreement across many topics. Relationship roles are typically highest, and communication, conflict resolution, and partner style and habits are the lowest scores for them. Then the last one on here, devitalized. They are the lowest satisfaction rate and least positive couple agreement in most areas. These couple types have been validated across cultures in the United States and other countries around the world. This instrument is currently used in 12 countries and also can be translated into foreign languages if that's needed, but these have been normed. For our foster and adoptive families, we have approved home studies for and placed children with vitalized, harmonious, and conventional couples. The important thing is not the couple type necessarily, but their self-awareness and their willingness to work on growth areas and work together as a team to be the very best parents that they can. Conflicted and devitalized couple types would probably not be successful as adoptive parents because they have so much work to do on their marriage still. And we, as an agency, would probably not be comfortable placing children with them at that time. Another measure in the Prepare Enrich is idealistic distortion and relationship dynamics. Idealistic distortion is useful so that we can see how much a couple is answering questions to say what they believe is socially acceptable and what they think we want them to say, and how much they are basically looking at their relationship with rose-colored glasses. So it will assess the degree to which they are answering these questions in what they think is a socially desirable way. For example, the statements on the slide, every new thing I have learned about my partner has pleased me. That's one of the screener questions for idealistic distortion. And then the two others here, I have never regretted my relationship with my partner, and my partner always gives me the love and affection I need. Well, clearly these have absolute statements in them, every, never, always, and it is, we are human beings. There will never be a time that we are absolute with one another. And I just used the word never, but when couples agree with these statements, it is revealing they are a bit idealistic and not always realistic about their relationship. These are extreme overgeneralization statements. And in general, couples tend to be more idealistic in the early stages of their relationship. So if you are working with a couple who is newly married, maybe just at the beginning of our eligibility requirements, right at 2 to 3 years married, they will likely be more idealistic than those who have been married longer. A higher score on this of over 65% indicates an overly positive view, while a low score, 40% or lower, indicates a more realistic view of the relationship. The Prepare Enrich instrument will adjust individual satisfaction scores when couples rate very high in idealistic distortion to correct for this. So it does have that correction built in. It's not perfect, but it is built into the measure that when this is detected, it has a fix for it. In our example here on the slide, we've got Ken and Anita, both showing up as average in idealism. So they are fairly realistic, but each have some tendency at times to minimize the problems. And if we as an agency have not successfully put couples at ease when introducing this assessment and asking them to do it, it is even more likely that they will have higher scores because they want to look their best for us, and they will likely see this as a pass-fail – test, which it is not. Relationship dynamics is next here, and there are 4 key relationship dynamics that impact relationship success. The first is assertiveness. That's the ability to express one's feelings and ask for what one wants. And right next to it is self-confidence, how good you may feel about yourself and your ability to accomplish what you want in life. Avoidance, however, is the tendency to minimize issues and a reluctance to deal with issues directly. And then partner dominance, how much one feels controlled or dominated by their partner. In our example here, we have Ken and Anita, both very high, high or very high in assertiveness and self-confidence, and then low or very low in avoidance and partner dominance. These are very healthy dynamics, which result in greater satisfaction with the relationship. And this is a pattern that we like to see, where both individuals are high in assertiveness and self-confidence and lower in avoidance and partner dominance. Those who are high in assertiveness and self-confidence tend to like the personality of their partner. They feel good about their communication and conflict resolution skills, and they score lower in avoidance and partner dominance. Conversely, those who are higher in avoidance and partner dominance tend to dislike the personality of their partner. They are less satisfied with their communication and conflict resolution skills, and they score lower in assertiveness and self-confidence. Our goal in working with the couples is to make them aware of these cycles and strengthen the positive cycle while reducing the negative cycle. Commitment to the relationship is a powerful dynamic for couples. Couples who are committed to the relationship are more likely to weather future challenges. Prepare Enrich gives us some commitment questions that are very interesting. From these questions, we're able to see not only how the individual views their own commitment level, but also how they see their partner's commitment. Ken and Anita both agree or strongly agree with these statements, which is a good sign. If there are big differences or if someone is not very committed, we may have a discussion about that. But Ken and Anita look to be in a good place for commitment. And then there are some abuse screener questions. I find this to be highly valuable when we use Prepare Enrich. Both individuals answer questions for themselves and also what they know for their partner. That can be a very enlightening aspect to this. For example, Ken will answer if he has a problem with alcohol or drug use, and then he also answers if his partner ever had problems with alcohol or drug use. Occasionally, you'll see things on here that bring to light what one partner may have in their past that the other partner does not know about, or their perception of the issues may be different as well. This section is useful not only for the home study workers' information, but also helps to begin that conversation with each individual about sensitive topics, especially if there is discrepancy in their answers. The next thing we have out of Prepare Enrich is the personal stress profile, and I love this one. It is one of my favorite parts. One of the goals is to look at what their capacity is for more stress, because we all know that fostering and adopting brings on more stress, and there's no way around that. The assessment gives us an overall score for each individual's stress level. In the example, we have Ken with an average level of stress, while Anita has a slightly higher level and is actually in the high category. Knowing that this couple is pursuing foster or adoption, I would want to talk with them about how they both individually manage their stress, how they know when their partner is stressed, and how they support one another during stressful times. Just because we have couples with a high level of stress doesn't mean that they cannot adopt, but we want them to be very aware and to learn how to manage that stress successfully. Here's the next part of the stress profile. Ken and Anita actually listed out, they didn't list, they chose agree to disagree, or I'm sorry, never to very often for these stressors. And we are able to see how they rate them. I like putting this in front of the couple and asking them to look at the list and reflect on what may be surprising to them, especially of their spouse's stressors. We hope that there are no surprises. And then I follow up with questions about what is in their control. What will be exacerbated by adding a child to the family system? And then what can they do while they're waiting to actually lessen the stress in their life and prepare? So looking at Ken and Anita's stressors, adding a child to the family is not going to fix a lack of sleep. It will make that one worse. Ken is stressed by lack of time with partner. Okay, that one's probably not going to go away when you add a child. Owing too much money, definitely not going away with adoption anyway. Fostering, it may not be much of a financial stress. Too much to do around the home. You can see how Ken's stressors are really going to be exacerbated when adding parenting. However, you want to point out things that they do have control over. Too much to do around the home is on both of their lists. Perhaps you can talk with them about getting assistance. Maybe they are financially stable and able to have a maid come and clean the house, and that can relieve some stress. So you want to help them look creatively at it to see what really is in their capacity to control and how to handle the stress moving forward. Couple and family maps are also very interesting. They are based on the circumplex model, and these two look very similar, but they are different. A couple or family map is created by Ken and Anita answering statements about their couple first, and then also about their family of origin related to closeness and flexibility. So closeness is the feeling of togetherness and emotional connection that they have with each other. It's measured by statements like I versus we, the amount of loyalty or independence or interdependence in a relationship. Flexibility, however, is the ability to make changes in roles and leadership when necessary. It's measured by openness to change, leadership, role sharing, and discipline. The goal is for couples to have a healthy balance on both dimensions, which lands them in the 9 white squares in the middle. The gray areas on the edges are extreme in one dimension or the other, and the very dark corners are extreme in both measures. We really desire for our couples to be in the 9 white squares in the middle so that they are balanced. You can see from the sample that Ken describes their relationship as flexible and connected, while Anita describes it as very flexible and very connected. You may be wondering about that difference. Because they have each answered questions about their perception of their relationship, this really is not a problem. It is okay for them to land in different squares as long as they're near each other, but it would be very concerning if their perceptions were opposite of one another and they were in very different corners of the couple map. The family map then reveals what they said about the family they grew up in. And it shows that they grew up in systems with very similar closeness and flexibility to what they have created in their couple relationship. For couples pursuing foster and adoption, this is a really good time to mention to them the balance between structure and nurture with their children, as well as the importance of having internal flexibility as a parent to try different techniques and respond to the child's needs, while also keeping life very predictable for their child. Flexibility for our families is not everyday change, constant change for their kiddos. The couple and family maps also lead to a really good discussion of how they were parented and what they would like to emulate or change. Human nature is to recreate the family system characteristics that we grew up with. And couples must be very intentional if either have originated from a family system that was unbalanced in any way. Next, we have the scope personality profile, and I hope you're getting a sense for the amount of information that Prepare Enrich gives us. It really gives us a lot to work with, and we have a lot of good conversations with families as a result. Personality is a fun one to talk through as well. I like to always help people understand that there is no right or wrong personality. And when reviewing this with clients, reminding them that God has perfectly created all of us and there is no right or wrong. I think sometimes God has a sense of humor in who he puts us with in marriage. There are times that we cherish the different personalities, and sometimes it will infuriate us and drive us crazy. This personality profile is meant to help the partners better understand themselves and each other. Then they can work better together as a team and have increased satisfaction with their relationship as well. So the SCOPE personality profile stands for social, which that dimension is looking at extroversion versus introversion. Change, which is looking at dependable versus open to change. How much might a person desire or seek out change? And then organized is the O. This is not at all related to how many file folders they have or is their bookcase alphabetized or not. It is more looking at conscientiousness versus easygoing. And then the last two, pleasing, is described as agreeable versus competitive. Are they motivated to please others and get along with others, or be a little bit more competitive? And emotionally steady is looking at if they are fairly calm and even keel, or a bit more sensitive or perhaps reactive. So we'll look at that in the next slide here and see an example for Ken and Anita. But do remember that there is no right or wrong. I think that there are times that our personalities make things harder or easier for us, though. And parenting foster or adoptive kiddos can be very challenging, and there are times that our personality aspects can make it more so. And that is what leads our conversation really with the family, more than focusing on a right or a wrong aspect of personality. So for Ken and Anita, we have the SCOPE personality scales here. And social, we can see that Anita is slightly more extroverted. They're both low on it, a bit more introverts overall. Change, it looks like Anita is a little bit more open to change than Ken is. He may find change a little bit more stressful. And organized, we have Ken touching the high rating on organized, and Anita is low on this. They may have trouble understanding one another in terms of being very goal-oriented and driven. So that could impact their relationship and how they relate to one another. Pleasing, we see that Anita is very interested in pleasing other people, very high in this dimension. She likes people to get along. Ken is lower in this and is likely a more competitive individual. He probably prefers being right over having everyone happy. And then emotionally steady, they're both average. When I talk with families about the personality scales, I like to focus on the change dimension and the emotionally steady dimension. These are the ones that I think are most related to how they will handle the adoption or foster journey. There is a lot of change coming for this family. If this is their first child or not, there is a lot of change coming. So for someone to be very low in the change dimension, it means that they will have increased stress. So you can go back to the stress profile and revisit those conversations. If you have both who are very low in change here, you have a very rigid couple and need to talk with them about how they're going to handle the amount of change required of them. And then emotionally steady, it's very good for people to be average on this. All of us have ups and downs. That's to be expected. We would be a little worried about two individuals who are both very low in emotionally steady, because they would be a little bit more reactive and more emotionally bothered by the things that happen in life, by stress, by challenges. And we'd want to talk with them a lot about how they can get through those things. A lot of times we see couples where either both are average, or you have one high and one average. Normally there's at least one person who is high and a bit more emotionally steady, a bit more of the rock, and able to stay a bit more rational. So that was the personality scale. And then now I just want to point out a few things about introducing the assessment to the couple. So clearly there's a lot of information. This session today is not going to get into every single one for what it means for the adoption process or how to talk about it. I've touched on that a little bit, but I do want to share the importance of introducing the assessment to the couple in the right way. I think it's only as effective as we help families to use it. So when we introduce this to the couple, it may be the home study coordinator, it may be your social worker, it depends on where you're doing this in the process, but we want to explain the reason to them. We want to help them understand that we're having them do this assessment because we truly value the strength of their marriage, and we believe that it is the foundation of their parenting and their family system going forward. And when we're able to explain it to them that way, that it is not a pass-fail, we can put them at ease and help them to really see how this can benefit them, how they can enjoy it and grow from it. Most of the time, couples are very open to it. And we can tell them it's simply a snapshot of their relationship currently. Relationships do change, and over time, we have families repeat the Prepare Enrich, perhaps a year later. There's also a checkup version that we use sometimes when families come back, because relationships do change, family systems change, especially when you add another child. And we want them to know that this is a helpful tool to help us help them prepare for the journey. We all know that children who have experienced relational trauma need relational healing, and they bring with them a lot of baggage. So we want to do everything that we can to support the couple and strengthen them in the areas where they may have room for growth. And we can tell them that they could be doing very well right now, but any cracks that they have in their relationship are going to be magnified by adding a traumatized child into that family system. And right now really is the best time to work on those areas before adding that child. And we want them to be honest. Just remind them of that it's not a test. We want them to be as honest as possible, go with their gut reaction. And we request that they not discuss it as they're doing the assessment. They can take it at the same time if they want, as long as they're sitting in separate rooms and not talking through each question. We do want them to talk about it afterwards. They're going to come away from it curious. They're going to wonder, oh my golly, what did my spouse put for the question, the statement, blah, blah, blah. It's okay for them to talk about it once they have both taken the assessment, and it can actually be helpful for them to have some of those talks before you go over the results with them. It just gets them thinking even sooner. One thing to keep in mind is there is a power imbalance between us, the adoption agency, and our couples. They want to please us. There is no way around that. They see us as the gatekeepers for their adoption. So it is so, so important that we present this tool and the home study process as us walking alongside them, empowering them, equipping them for success, to help them really see this as a learning tool, not a test. We do have some email templates that in our Kentucky office we've used to introduce this that I'm happy to share with people, but we will talk about that at another time. I am excited to tell you about some other options with Prepare Enrich. The PE checkup is a shorter version of the Prepare Enrich assessment. It's shorter for them to take, shorter results for us to go over. In the parenting version, I'm very, very excited about this, and I see a place for this within Nightlight as well. It actually explores their parenting styles and their stress, their communication, and their satisfaction with each child in their home. It basically overlays parenting styles on top of the couple and family map, which is fascinating for me. And it gives great information to the couples as well. There is a workbook that comes with Prepare Enrich. There's a biblical version and also a non-biblical. Basically, the difference is whether or not there are Bible verses for each core scale. We do want to give that to our couples. Why not? It's a resource that they give us, and we can help our couples have some tools to work on the growth areas. There's also a facilitator follow-up question guide, which is very useful for, especially as you're starting out with this instrument, to know the questions to ask to get some discussion started. So I have flown through an overview of Prepare Enrich, and I now am curious what questions you have. And of course I had to put marriage on here because
I think that's hysterical.
I
have a couple questions,
okay.
Alicia.
Yes.
What if it's a single person that's adopting?
The Prepare Enrich is a marriage assessment tool. So for single couples in the home study process, perhaps not in all of our offices, but in some, we use a different type of assessment tool, like an eco map or a genogram, something else that is very suitable for individuals. In the future, I am trying to get an adult attachment inventory put into our home study process that is useful with single or married people as well.
And in the slide where you were showing the various levels with the scales and then the various things down here on the bottom, what is meant by relationship roles? Because I was noticing that if they were lower on the scale, they tended to be higher in relationship roles. Is that just saying they understand that the husband is the husband and the wife's wife? What does that mean?
Yes. It is very much about that. So relationship roles are what they each do to keep their household going. You know, does one do the grocery shopping and, you know, the chore breakup and also the leadership? So who makes the decisions? So yes, that's what relationship roles is.
Okay. And I just have one more thing, because I was just thinking that you should talk to Dan about this, because I feel like this would be a really nice employee perk if you were married, to have the opportunity to take this with your spouse. Because I know it costs money. I believe it costs money. I believe it costs our families money to take this test.
It does. The assessment is $35 per couple, and then the benefit really comes through doing feedback with the facilitator as well. I believe on the Prepare Enrich website there is I'm trying to remember what they called it. It's like a couple checkup quiz, a do-it-yourself type of version. I haven't looked at it myself, but I am intrigued to talk to Dan about it as an employee benefit. I think that would be wonderful.
Thank you very much. Nice presentation.
You're welcome. Do we have any other questions?
Alicia, can I ask just a random question?
Yes.
I've always wondered about this because it's been around a while, and you know, I've had the training and all that. There's not an and between prepare and enrich. Do people normally say it that way though? I mean, because
I don't know. How have I been saying it? I think
I couldn't tell.
I think you're saying prepare and enrich.
Well, it technically started out as two separate assessments. And then when it went online, they combined it. So they were able to put that slash in the middle. It used to truly be the prepare assessment or the enrich assessment, whether it was for premarital work or married couples. Now I'm not quite sure how the majority of people say it. I generally just kind of run it all together really fast, prepare enrich.
Yeah, I think that's right.
It's not a big deal, you know, but I'm thinking if whoever created this and, you know, trains has a way that they want us to use it, if we're going to start using it, we need to know that.
Well, I do think in general it is referred to as prepare enrich assessment. I never correct people if they say prepare and enrich. It's not a big deal. I will double check though, so that when we do it with clients, we say it correctly.
Okay. Great job. I've had this, and this is such a great refresher.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
Alicia?
Yes.
This is Rhonda. We get a lot of clients that English is not their first language. Are there assessments available in Farsi and Spanish?
Okay, now Farsi, I'm going to have to go look at the website and see. I know they have at least a dozen languages it translates into, but I will look to see if there is Farsi. But that is one of the perks. It does translate into at least a dozen languages. I know that's a hindrance, not a hindrance, but a hurdle for us, especially like education materials as well. But we do have that ability here.
Okay, super. And also we have a lot of secular families in our California.
Totally fine. The assessment really is customizable, so we could choose the non-religious version for them. They will not see any Bible references or questions about prayer. They still have a spiritual component to it, but it is more about their individual beliefs for like the spiritual realm in general. It's very, very palatable for non-Christians.
Super, thank you.
Alicia, so I see really easily how we can use this to say, hey, here are some areas of concern, like maybe not concern, but here are some areas where this could cause some challenges for you as you become an adoptive parent. So we want to talk over it. But I know you mentioned like there would be maybe certain types of families that we would not feel comfortable moving forward in the adoption process. So have you had that experience where you've really needed to actually kind of either deny a family or tell them we need to pause so that you can get some counseling and then you can come back to us? Have you had that experience? Or if you haven't, how do you imagine very generally and briefly how we would navigate that?
I don't want us to ever rely on Prepare Enrich alone to say whether or not we would move forward with someone, with a couple. I think the couple types does show us the strength of their marriage as a whole. And so when you move from vitalized down to devitalized, when you get in that middle realm with, I think it's called conventional, we just need to make sure they're very strong in a lot of other areas because their overall satisfaction is a little lower. The devitalized couples and conflicted couples, they are likely not even coming to us because those couples probably are not saying, wow, I think we should foster or adopt. If they did, we would have some serious conversations with them about their readiness to foster or adopt, but I would want to look at it in conjunction with every other piece of information we have and then have a conversation with them that outlines all sources of information. Does that answer the question? Okay. I have used it in a couple instances to further justify why a couple needed to do some work before they come back to us. Their stress profiles were off the charts. Their physical health was not great. There were several things in Prepare Enrich that were just additional justification for things I saw in other ways too.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah.
And when, I have a question about when we would be doing this as part of the home study process.
So I think right now the different offices who do use it may have a slightly different process of when it fits in with the interviews and the home visits. And that's something that I want to talk with each office about to see what would work well with them. It would clearly be the home study process, and the goal is that it's introduced to the couple and that they also have a discussion with the worker over the results. So in Kentucky, we put it between the two visits. We do, during the first visit, we do a variety of things and also tell them about the assessment. So that way they get to know their worker, they're kind of relaxing a little bit. It's a real person that they're dealing with, and we help lay the expectations for Prepare Enrich, and they do it, and then the results are reviewed in the next visit. But I have also, I don't know if it's our other offices or another agency I've spoken with, I've seen it done where a couple will do it before they even have a first visit. So there's not a right or a wrong way to do it. That's something we want to look at for night to see what may work best.
Is it a separate fee in your fee schedule?
It is not on our fee schedule necessarily. It is just part of the home study process. We may have it built in with our education, training, miscellaneous fees on the international home schedule or international fee schedule. You know, we would lump this in as those miscellaneous fees. related to home study. But there are technically two different ways you can do it. You can purchase a number of assessments in advance as an agency, and you get a discount that way. Or you can just let each individual couple log in and pay with credit card when the first person logs in. And that is how I've always done it, partly because we never know how many people are coming through. And also having people like trying to build it into the cost of a home study to then cover what we've prepaid to Prepare Enrich. It was just cleaner for us to have the couple pay for it when they log in. But there's that prepay option we could look at too. Y'all have some very good questions. Any others?
I had one more. Just looking kind of briefly on the website, it looked like adoption and foster care were like separate, different assessments. Is that true?
The only difference, I actually compared it earlier this week. The 10 core scales are all the same, and those 3 customized scales, there are very, very slight wording differences on a few items. They basically swap out the word foster for adoption on the majority of them. There are maybe 4 things I highlighted that were more different, but they're pretty much the same thing.
Okay. So we would have families that do what would be applicable to their process.
Right. So as a facilitator, when I set up a couple, I choose adoption versus foster. I choose the religious background. Those are about the only things I choose right now. The parenting version that I'm really excited about, I would love to see us use potentially at home study updates, or even post-adoption if we're really concerned about families, because the overlay of parenting style on the family map and the ability to look at the relationship between each parent and each child is just very exciting, and I think has a lot of promise. And I've talked to Prepare Enrich, and I asked them to please combine it all together, and they said they can't do that.
Is there any requirement about, or expectation about who does the visit with the family? I mean, it's in terms of education or clinical background or anything?
No, the Prepare Enrich tool itself can be used by anyone. Anyone could be trained to be a facilitator. It's generally going to be mental health practitioners who've been trained, or pastors. There's lay people who do ministries in churches. So there's not a set education requirement by Prepare Enrich for who can be a facilitator. We don't have that necessarily within Nightlight either, that it has to be reviewed by a particular degreed staff person. As I look at a rollout and I talk to all of our different offices, I'm going to look at how it's done currently in the offices that are doing it, so we could figure out what may be best. One, I want everyone who talks about Prepare Enrich to be very comfortable with it and not feel like they're being asked to do something they're not comfortable with. And then 2, that it makes sense for the person to be having that conversation and doing the follow-up. I've heard lots of different ways that it is done in various agencies.
Yeah. And do you do the visit with them about that in person? Can it be done on the phone?
In person is preferable. Just the way Prepare Enrich is set up and the design of it. I think it has fit really well into our home study visits, at least in Kentucky. And a lot of times it will naturally feed into other conversations that you're going to have anyway. Right. So there ends up being a great deal of overlap with your interview questions, and you may just very organically move between what you need to cover. I am toying with the idea of also requiring it for out-of-state families, and that would obviously be done by phone or video conference. So there's lots of possibilities. I'm very excited.
Hey, Alicia, it's Beth.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to mention one other thing, and you might have already said this, but There are two separate reports that are generated. There's one that the couple gets a copy of, and then there's a much more detailed one that the facilitator receives. And so we are actually not allowed, it's a copyright violation for us to share that facilitator report with the couple. And so I think that's just kind of important to remember. But also, gosh, I forgot what I was going to say. I just totally left my brain. Oh, I was just going to say, I don't know how this is done elsewhere, but I know in Kentucky, before I did the training to become a facilitator myself, which there is a fee associated with that for us all to become facilitators, I still was, trained kind of, informally by Alicia to be able to review those with couples. So before I became SFE coordinator, I was still reviewing those reports with adoptive families, even though I wasn't trained as a facilitator and had that official facilitator title. So I know, like, we use this for the SFE, and most of the SFE providers are not necessarily facilitators, but I generally, especially when they first begin doing SFEs, I will do just a training by phone with them if they don't use it in their office normally, as to, the best way to review that with families. And then if they're not comfortable, I still have a couple that just aren't comfortable with reviewing those with families. So then I'll do it. Even if they're doing the rest of the interviews in the home visit, I'll go over the Prepare Enrich with the couple myself.
Yeah, there are a lot of opportunities and ways that we can work this out. I have a talk with Lisa next week, because in my talks with Prepare Enrich, there are some different training models that we could follow. One, I want to be very respectful of their product and their time and their ownership of the product. I don't think it's necessary that every single Nightlight person who may speak about Prepare Enrich with a couple, that they also be a true facilitator and able to log into the system and input the couple themselves. I'm not sure that that's necessary. So I want to look at what we really need for different types of personnel and decide what type of a training might be most appropriate for various roles within Nightlight. There is a possibility of doing a shorter, so the true facilitator training is actually 6 hours long, I think. You can do it in person or you can do it online, and it's more expensive online, but it's very long. And a summary like what I did today is available by video through Prepare Enrich, and could potentially be something that we offer instead for a lot of our staff. So these are all things that I'm still working on, but the point for today was just to make sure everybody had a really good overview and knew what it was and what we're talking about when we're saying, hey, Prepare Enrich is coming. But there are definitely a lot of details to still be worked out. And thank you, Beth, for adding in. It's very hard in an hour to share everything possible. So we will have more in-depth training as it rolls out, but it's 5 o'clock here. So we will wrap up. I appreciate you all being here today and your wonderful questions. And everybody should go watch Princess Bride now. I hope I've gotten everybody inspired.
Thanks, Alicia. It was great.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye.